Because imagine you're an insect and you suddenly flying along and see fields of your favourite food. First thing you're going to do is like you go a little bit lower, and it's still there, and a little bit lower, and then you land on it and you go, this is heaven. You call your friends in, you have lots of wild sex, you multiply, and then you eat out the entire crop. Monoculture creates major pest problems, major sales in pesticides, which is major environmental problems. And if you grow in polycultures, as nature does, the more diversity, which you and I have discussed before, but for the sake of the video, the more diverse, then the more stable the landscape is, the more soil building that it does. And by mulching, you build soil. So you are creating an environment that now doesn't, it actually confuses insect pests, the flying ones. So they are not seeing a monoculture, they're seeing a random collection of things. So they've got no reason to fly down. The ones that do fly down, if you have a particular problem with a particular bug, you find out what its favourite food is and plant it next to the food you want to keep and let it eat the favourite. So you give in to everybody in a fair basis. And if that's a problem, introduce your chickens for a little bit, or ducks if you've got snails. Because if you've got a snail problem, you've got a duck deficiency.
I just want to say, I'm okay that slugs eat some of my plants. I just want to speak to what you're talking about too. What I found is symbiosis, and what I've heard, and what I'm noticing is the healthier my soil, the healthier my plants. The healthier my plants, the less they get eaten by bugs and stuff. And if I get the odd slug bite out of a plant, just eat it anyway. Just clean it off and eat it.
Then you know it's healthy. Then you know it's organic. And what you're saying is so true. And so many people around the world are actually now reporting that the more diversity they have, and that's 7 layers of growing, because you've got your rhizo, your root crops, then you've got your ground covers, your bush layer, then you've got 3 levels of trees into your overstory, and you've got your vines. And so with these different diversity and layers, then there is no insect pest problem. It's been reported everywhere. This is common knowledge. The more you put in, the better.
Yes, and I just, something that just popped into my brain, I just want to bring this up, is nature has an answer and a solution to every problem, every bug, every pest, everything that does damage to the environment. I have hope, and I humbly admit I don't have that answer, but I know it exists. And somehow, some way, through microbiology or plants or something, I think we can heal this planet.
I wrote an article saying how modern commercial agriculture is creating global warming, how to reverse the process, and how to fix it.
Yes.
And it's not rocket science, it's pretty simple stuff. Let me let you in on some little insights that I've had through permaculture training.
Let me know, let me hear.
Weeds are nature's healing plants. They're nature's healing plants because weeds generally come in when there's disturbed soil of some kind. They also are good indicators of what the problem is. And if you know your weeds, and I'll pick on one because we have limited time, the thistle. The thistle is an indicator that the ground has become acidic. And acidity in the ground is caused by 2 things. It's caused by compaction or too much water, and then the ground goes anaerobic, it can't breathe anymore because the biology dies off a little bit, what have you. So the purpose of this is it has one major taproot that taps into the ground and mines the different minerals, and I understand them to be copper and iron, because the acidic ground locks them up and they're unavailable to plants. So acidic ground or any pH imbalance in the soil creates nutrient deficiencies in your plants. So the taproot digs into the ground, breaks it up, then mines the copper and the iron, brings it to the surface, and when it dies, it deposits those on the surface for the next generation of soil production, which is extremely slow. So permaculture fast tracks that. So by the nature of this, by seeing, and if you don't know anything about weeds, and you don't know anything about what they're actually telling you is deficient in the soil, dig it up. Look at the root system and go, what does the root tell me? And if it's a hairnet root, it tells you the ground's too soft and it's trying to stitch it up. If it's a really deep taproot, it tells you your ground's too compacted and it's trying to break it up. And if you have thistles and thorns and those thorny, horrible bushes growing somewhere. They grow on erosion gullies, landslides, really badly disturbed ground, because their job, their healing purpose, is to stop large animals coming in and breaking the ground further, slow the wind so you don't get wind erosion, stitch it up so you don't get water erosion when it rains, because most of our rivers and most of the dust from the sky from Greece comes from Africa because of the erosion. If they had plants, you have less problems. And so their job of this plant then slows the nutrient down with the wind, drops down, fertilises the ground, the small animals come in, fertilise the ground further, bring in seeds, grow trees, the trees shade out the weeds go away. Succession planning, which is another part of permaculture. Amazing stuff.
It's amazing stuff. I mean, what you're just talking about is quite technical, but when you learn the science, what I find, when you learn the science blows me away. Like, I picked up soil the other day for a friend who I was spraying their fruit trees with again, a natural bacteria that was going to kill any caterpillars that decimated her trees last year.
Yeah, I heard about this.
But I picked up that soil. She had no idea that there was life in the soil. She guessed there was like 1,000 living things in that handful of soil I had. And I said, if this soil is alive and it's well fed, there's billions of living things in the soil. And it's that scientific information that I've been learning about that's inspiring, that gives me hope. That there's a billion living things in a cup of soil. What if the field landscapes or like millions of acres all over this planet, we'd be bringing back so much life? I think we need to focus more on soil. I think we need to focus more on no-till, on permaculture stuff. And whether you're going to be a permaculturist, and we could heal landscapes, so we could bring water back to landscapes, so we could bring soils back to life. We could bring, like, I grow abundance in my yard where it used to be like, the lawn was heavily chemicalized, green grass, and now there's like food abundance. Like, we can do this everywhere.
Your front yard is amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Look, you actually mentioned something else. The second biggest problem is insect pests. When you have healthy soil biology, you have healthy plants, and you've got diversity, there becomes stability. The insect pest problems aren't a problem anymore, because they're not in natural systems, and you're creating a natural ecosystem. So just by growing diversity, you're minimizing your insect pest problem, which is the other major part. And soil health, when you do something as simple as mulching and no digging or tilling, and you cut, as I've suggested, leaving the roots in, do not disturb the ground. Saves you a ton of work, but then soil health builds, and the health of everything works. So if you've got bad soil of any kind, I don't bother with any of the sciences. I'm doing actually a soil course right now, but I've actually realized that through permaculture, you can fix your soil so you don't have to worry about what's wrong with it by doing those few simple things we've just mentioned. So do them, you fix your soil. Now, you asked me what projects I've done. In Greece, everything I've done has been voluntary. And the biggest project that I've done, which I actually show on my Kerry Cameraworks page, Kerry Cameraworks SEO7, is the finish of the music school garden. And that was a 1,500 square metre plot where I've had, it was just bloody beautiful, really. I had the chance to get a big place and turn it into a garden for the music school of Corfu. And I had 70 varieties of heritage seeds, which I actually sourced through the locals, the oldies, who are the last bastions, the last caretakers of this seed on the planet. When they die, I don't think too many kids are going to be taking up that cause unless there's a major shift in mental attitude. So I built this garden. It took me 12 months. And in it, I, on slope, created what the keyhole garden, which I mentioned before, but a series of interconnected keyhole gardens that also harvest the water from the top of the hill down. So they would slowly fill. I'd get about 2 inches of water in the base and then let that flood and overflow through all of the channels and all of the walkways. I had one major walkway through the center, which was for a wheelbarrow, and the rest were foot, narrower, more growing space. The keyhole concepts fitted together work brilliantly because you can harvest so much more food per space. And all that water went down into a swale. So water harvesting with swales is an incredibly important part of permaculture. What I did, which was, I believe, unique in permaculture circles, is created a subterranean water harvesting system as well. So these beds were all hugelculture. All of the choppings that we did of the olive trees that were in the area, we buried that wood, and I created continuous channels that were a 3-degree slope from the very top of the hill all the way down to the swale, through all the garden beds, underneath the garden beds. So the tops harvest water, and the quick rain runs and goes into the swale, fills it. The slow soaking rain then goes into the underground system and becomes a wicking bed, so it waters from underneath and keeps moisture in the hugel, the timber, hugelculture. And so also covered Kerry Cameraworks SCO7, the very opening scene shows the slope because I roll the ball and it goes from the very top to the very bottom of the system without stopping. It's a beautiful thing to see. So that was a big project. I completely designed it up using all permaculture systems. So I had, obviously you've mentioned hugelculture. I had an area where I created compost, and I got a truckload, literally, a council truckload of oleander cuttings, poisonous toxic plant. And I converted it all, composted it and turned it all into soil. So that was a good little exercise because it was free. I had about 50 massive plastic bags of this stuff that I'd unloaded and then composted up. And I went and got a horse manure from a local horse place and what have you. So that was a good little thing on site. I created a beautiful herb spiral out of the local timber because you use your local materials. You don't buy in stuff as much as you can. I created water harvesting from the road surface, which is the car park next to it, where I had a turn gate. And you could turn the gate to channel the water straight into the garden, or if there was a massive downpour, turn it and run it off. Generally, never flooded.
Something that I think is so important about what you're practicing with the keyhole gardens, with the swales, especially, is what's degrading soils in the millions and billions of acres all over the planet. A lot of it is the killing of the soil, and then the soil gets hard, the rains fall, the rains wash off, or they take that topsoil with them, and they wash it away. So we're losing like billions of tons of topsoil into rivers, into the oceans, degrading those rivers, degrading oceans. But what you're talking about, if we can do this on a massive scale, which more and more people are doing, still not that big, but it's growing. But if every farmer did what you're talking about, if they built swales, if they captured that water, if they were building their topsoil, keeping it covered, keeping it mulched, and it wasn't washing away, we wouldn't just grow like healthier plants and healthier food, but we'd be protecting local waterways, protecting the ocean, fish, so much life form.
So right, so right. You sparked me off another thought of a project that I did, but the modern agriculture, it is acceptable to have a topsoil loss every year. And the number, I won't quote because I can't remember exactly, but it horrified me. Just the fact that they accept that there's topsoil loss. It's not sustainable.
Like over a ton an acre. Like more than a ton of acre on a typical farm in like the prairies that farm corn, where they farm corn, they lose like annually.
Yeah.
So that's where like you bring up the idea of sustainable, and it's a word that I've been on the last few years is regenerative. We're regenerative, we're sustainable sustains where we're at. We're regenerating soil, which is basically what you're talking about, actually builds soil. It stores more carbon in the soil. It rebuilds minerals in the soil. And we're actually, what we're talking about is more regenerative in that it's growing what we have, growing plants.
Perhaps I should define sustainable. Permaculture systems, all that I can find as sustainable systems. And sustainable defined, actually, first of all, ask anybody to define sustainability, even the agriculturists, even anybody that says, oh yes, we do sustainable, and they'll be fluffing around for 5 minutes just sort of trying to work out the answer. But it's as simple as this. The product returns more energy than it takes to build it, maintain it, and destroy it or break it down at the end of its life cycle. And so more comes out than goes in. That's a sustainable system, and everything in permaculture is sustainable. You asked me about big projects. I did a design once. It was an exercise I did because I just wanted to play with how far you can go. And I picked an island in Greece, and it's a double island of Trikeri. And what sparked me off is you're talking about the plants on land benefiting the animals in the water, in the oceans. Well, I worked on that. I created a scenario saying, somebody's come to me to regenerate this island and make it a scientific research centre for the aqua or the marine life within that region. So I thought, well, how do you build an island from scratch? How do you house people? How do you create just the infrastructure? You've got to bring in bulldozers and stuff. So I set it up from scratch. I've netted off a bay, so the bay is untouched by anybody ever. It has north wind, so we created a shelter side on the south, but when the southerlies come through, there's actually a gate through that protected area. In the north, for big boats to come, we created a harbour where you can load big machinery onto the ground, a place where to put the sheds, the correct structure place to put the house, the main house, which I then thought, okay, I'm into this sort of thing. Let's design a house that is earthquake-proof, tsunami-proof, is self-sustaining. And so when I say tsunami-proof, it can get completely submerged in water and you have a capsule in the top where you're protected. Basically an egg-shaped design. And you have a pole that you can climb up to get into the top with that hole. Doesn't matter if the whole thing's flooded, the air pressure and that will keep you safe in that capsule. And earthquake-proof, if there are rocks that come down the mountain behind it, they roll down and just the back of it is built into the mountain, rolls off the top of the egg shape. So I've got all kinds of things built in there. Put in self-heating and cooling systems, which are natural just by knowing what latitude you are on the planet. Then I can actually design a house that cools itself in summer and warms itself in winter with no electricity and keeps itself at a regular temperature. So it built that into the system.
Because you have a solution. I think more people need to hear about it, and they need to hire you. They need to, or they can be inspired to do their own work, or they can support permaculturists in their area.